The June 14, 2024 meeting of the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority will come to order. The minutes should reflect that both Authority Member Webb and myself are present. Welcome to everyone. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I make the motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's approved. Also approval of the February 2, 2024 minutes.
I make a motion to approve the February minutes.
So moved. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
It is, those are approved. The acceptance of the annual report to the Michigan Bridge Authority. I don't know that we need to do anything that other than note that it has been received, which places us on to new business. The first item under new business is project permitting updates, and the first item under that is the status of the the Michigan Public Service Commission opinion and order that I believe is in the Michigan Court of Appeals. Devin, take it away.
That's correct. That appeal is still pending. All of the appellants have filed their briefs except for the appellant's Environmental Law and Policy Center and Michigan Climate Action Network. They recently filed a motion to extend their time to file their brief on appeal, requesting an extension until June 27th. That motion is currently pending with the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals has, meanwhile, granted motions to extend the time filed by MPSC and Enbridge, setting the deadline for their briefs 63 days from the last appellant's brief that is filed. So assuming the Court of Appeals grants the final appellant's extension, you'd be looking at something in late August for once the appellee's briefs are filed, and then in September for appellants.
How many appellants are there?
I don't have the exact count, but it's roughly a dozen.
Okay. Any questions of Devin with respect to the status of that appeal? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Devin. The next project permitting update is the Army Corps of Engineers permitting process. Mark?
Yeah, thanks. We recently sat down.
By the way, I should be a little more formal. Mark, can you tell us your full position? And I should have also mentioned Devin, who gave the last presentation briefly on the appeal, is the Special Assistant Attorney General assigned to the authority. Mark, can you describe your role and then go into the Army Corps permitting process?
Mark Dubay, I'm with the Michigan Department of Transportation, Senior Project Manager in our Office of Major Projects, supporting the authority on this project, and we'll be helping out with the management of some of our project advisors, including our IQA consultant. We recently sat down with the Army Corps of Engineers. They are currently ongoing biological studies. Those will continue into the summer. The cooperating agencies just finished their reviews of chapters 1 and 2 of the EIS. Chapter 1 defines the authorities involved. Chapter 2 is a screening of alternatives. We are still currently on schedule for a draft EIS spring of 2025. Final EIS, a record of decision, spring 2026. And the Corps expressed that they will see some sort of an input from the MSCA as they get into the evaluation of the public comment. And they will reach out as necessary.
Okay. You referenced biologic studies?
Biological studies, correct. Cultural, resource, and biological studies. Those are being currently evaluated and will continue through the summer.
Can you give a little bit more of a description as to what those entail?
Yeah, the biological studies would be, would deal with impacts of the project to biological or plant or animal life in the surrounding area.
Okay. Any questions of Mark? All right. Thanks. The next item under new business is construction contractor selection process and general progress update. Who from Enbridge will be speaking on that item?
Yep. Good morning. Anna Mooney, External Affairs here for Enbridge, based here in Lansing, Michigan. So happy to update you guys today on the status of our contractor selection. So as you're aware now, likely we did award a contract to a joint venture of Barnard and Civil and Building North America. So the name of that joint venture is Mackinac Straits Partners. We're excited to have them on board under contract. As you just heard with the permitting update, much of their focus in this year is around permitting. So a lot of their work as it goes into construction plans and information requests that are required by the Army Corps of Engineers, the construction contractor having them on board now is hopefully going to help to move that process along this year. So we are excited to have them on board and look forward to introducing them to the general public here in the next year. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
You mentioned, is it actually a limited partnership that was formed by those two entities?
Correct, yes. Mackinac Straits Partners is a joint venture of two existing companies that have tunnel experience that have come together for this project.
Okay. Can you give a little more detailed description as to the qualifications of both of the two companies that formed that joint venture?
Sure, and maybe I'll even back up to the process that's been underway for the last couple of years. So back in 2022, we issued the request for proposal, or the RFP, that went out to bid for this contract. As you know, the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority was involved in at least reviewing and concurring in that RFP, working with us to ensure it was in compliance with the tunnel agreements. We then went out for an extensive bid process and really found a team of world-renowned tunneling experts, have many years of tunneling experience throughout not just North America but throughout the world, and really excited to have their expertise here in the Straits as we move forward with our internal project team as well.
Okay. Any questions? All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, under new business, is independent quality assurance contractor procurement.
Okay. Good morning, Talia Belill. I am also with the Michigan Department of Transportation. I work in the Office of Major Projects alongside of Mark in the Innovative Contracting Unit as a project manager. And my role is really to support Mark as well as the authority on this project. So at the last MSCA meeting in February, we received approval from the board to move forward with a contract with Delve Underground Michigan for independent quality assurance. We are working with our contract service division on this non-standard contract language. We anticipate that we will have a contract in place prior to our next meeting in October. Because the IQA's role is really construction oversight, we have no concerns with our current schedule and we're moving forward.
Okay. Any questions of Talia? All right, thank you. The next item is consultant contract update. Who will be, Mark, are you up again? Okay.
Yes, so just wanted to give an update. Their HT Engineering has been under contract on behalf of the authority to provide pipeline advisory services. Recently, HT was acquired by ADV Integrity. Due to some ongoing relationships with the parent company that now owns HT, it created a conflict of interest for them to remain involved in this project. So as part of the member packet, there is a termination of that contract. And to coincide with the termination of HT, we did reach out to our partners within the licensing and regulatory affairs to reach out within the industry to provide someone that could supplement the services that HT was providing and bring on a new advisor as needed to provide pipeline advisory services. And here with me today, I have Craig Brownlee. I'll let him introduce himself, but we would like to propose to move forward with contracting with Craig to replace the advisory services that were being met through HT.
Hi, my name's Craig Brownlee. I am an engineer from Oklahoma and Missouri area. I have a Bachelor of Science in Petroleum Engineering from the University of Oklahoma. Please don't hold that against me. And an MBA from Oklahoma State. I went to work for ONEOK right out of college. Was in the transmission and distribution portion of the company. Participated in all aspects of construction.
I'm sorry, that was which company?
ONEOK.
Okay.
Was involved in the construction, the engineering, the operations, the designs. Moved me around a lot, gave me a lot of experience. In 2000, I went to the utility side of the company, which is now called One Gas. It was part of ONEOK at the time. I was chief engineer over Kansas and Oklahoma, their properties in Kansas and Oklahoma. I had the transmission pipelines were in my group. We did code and standards for the company. I participated on code committee for the American Gas Association. Later became director of operations for the company. I was over compliance, the construction, the measurement regulation, the technical sides of things. And from there I became director of asset strategies, where I had some health problems. I chose to retire. Didn't do retirement very well. I had a good relationship with a lot of the pipeline safety auditors in the state of Oklahoma. They asked me to help out some of their distribution and small liquids operators that don't have access to engineering help. So I created an engineering firm, and I've been working with municipalities, gas systems, pipeline operators, gathering systems, that for the last 10 years is my own company.
Okay. Craig, did your background at ONEOK or subsequently include both gas and petroleum pipelines, or only gas?
While I was at ONEOK, we were only gas. They became liquid operators after I left, but I have been working with midstream companies, their liquid pipelines. I just recently completed a project for a CO2 pipeline. I work with several of them, and I comply. For me, I know the 195 codes and regulations quite well.
Can you describe what you mean by 195?
Okay,
code,
195
just
is
for the benefit of us and the audience.
Sorry. The PHMSA it regulates the pipelines, has two main codes that the pipeline operators operate under. One is 192, which is the natural gas side. 195 is the liquid side. And so they are the rules that are promulgated by the federal government to tell pipeline operators, these are the things you have to have, these are the ways you have to build things, these are how you have to protect against damage. And 195, like I said, is the liquid code.
Okay. Any other questions for Craig?
Yeah, I have a question. For the pipelines that you've been, or gas lines that you've been working with and had experience with, were they in similar conditions of a tunnel?
I have not worked with anybody in tunnels, but I have worked with pipelines that are hanging on racks in plant situations, in above ground settings where burying the pipeline would be inappropriate. And so I've been involved in several projects, both gas and liquid, where they are hanging on racks like they would in this project.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. Thanks, Craig. So we will need a motion to approve Craig's retention as a replacement for HT Engineering.
Correct.
Yeah, I make a motion to approve Craig for retention.
Okay, it's been moved that we replace HT Engineering with, due to their conflict of interest, with Craig Brownlee's firm. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next item is the project advisor budget report.
Yes, I'll take that
You're
one.
still up.
Still up. And attached to the meeting agenda here in the member packet is a summary of the current advisors, the service they're providing on behalf of the MSCA, and then some high level information, the start end date of the contract, total contract budget, and amount billed to date.
Okay, and we have the one that is of most interest, just indicating to be determined, is for the independent quality assurance contractor.
That is correct. That one is, we're working through that, so we haven't finalized. We obviously don't have a contract in place yet and still finalizing that. So that will be, hopefully, we'll have additional information at the coming board meeting.
Okay. Do we have an estimate of what we're going to be looking at for just the volume of funds available for that?
Yes. Talia, do you know offhand what it is?
It's okay. I'm sure that to anticipate that issue for the October meeting.
Yeah, at October we
when
should.
we're actually looking at retention.
Correct. We should be at a better position to provide that update in October.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a Freedom of Information Act appeal. Devin, you're back up for that.
I'll actually introduce myself this time. Devin Sullivan, Special Assistant Attorney General for the Authority. On February 13th, MDOT, on behalf of the Authority, received a FOIA request from Teresa Homsey. That request essentially sought communications for a certain time period and a certain set of individuals related to the Army Corps permitting process. Those documents were gathered and reviewed. Ultimately, 16 records were produced as responsive, and 23 records were withheld as subject to the attorney-client privilege under MCL 15.243(1) sub G. On April 23rd, Ms. Homsey submitted an appeal of that determination. That appeal essentially requested that the authority waive the attorney-client privilege and produce the documents under MCL 15.240 sub 3. That appeal is considered received today at the next regularly scheduled meeting, and the authority has 10 business days to either reverse the denial, issue a written notice upholding the denial, reverse in part and uphold in part, or issue a notice extending. I prepared a memorandum that I provided to the members of the board, essentially recommending that the denial be upheld with the exception of one document that appears to have been deemed exempt by mistake that does not appear to be attorney-client privilege.
Okay. So to summarize, they submitted a FOIA. Documents were provided in response to that FOIA, but certain subset of documents were withheld as attorney-client privileged. There was one document that was withheld in error, and your recommendation is for that one document to release it and grant the appeal insofar as it relates to that one document, but to deny the appeal with respect to the remaining documents because they still are appropriately designated as attorney-client privilege.
That's correct.
All right. I'll entertain a motion to accept and implement Devin's recommendation that we grant the appeal insofar as it relates to that one document, but deny the appeal as it relates to the remaining attorney-client privilege documents.
Yeah, I make a motion that we accept Devin's recommendation to provide the one document and continue to withhold the other documents.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion to grant the appeal as to the one document and deny it as to the remainder is approved. Next item is the schedule of regular meetings. Our next meeting is October 18 of 2024. I don't know if we'll have it here again at the Quality Inn or whether it's going to be back at the other place. But presumably we'll find that out between now and October. I'm just looking, is October 14 a good day for you? I'm just looking at what day of the week it is. Oh, sorry. Yeah, and that is designated as a Friday. Oh, and it does look like we're back at the other place. And that would be the weekend before the Michigan State football game, if anyone's keeping track of such issues.
Yes, that's good for me.
Okay. All right. So we will plan on reconvening at the October 18 meeting. We're now to the public comment section of the agenda. The minutes should reflect that we have received 5 public comments, and those should be appended to the minutes for this meeting. So we have received those. We also have how many people who have signed up to speak?
Good morning. There are 4 individuals who signed up to speak.
Okay, and first up is...
First up is Scott Newman, followed by Tom Chastain.
Scott appears to be on the correct side of the Michigan State divide.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to let you know that my name is Scott Newman. I'm president of the Village of Mackinac City. I've been involved in the Village Council for 10 years. And from day one, when this project was announced, Enbridge has been totally forthcoming with everything. As you know, we have a pump station just outside of the village limits. Enbridge has included us in every aspect when they changed. They've included our fire department, our police department, and EMS in our facilities departments in their exercises. And we found that they have been very forthcoming with every bit of information. They've held meetings with us countless times, updating us on the progress of the project's development. And I just want to say that we wholeheartedly support it as a village. We have made a resolution years ago in support, and we will continue to support them. Thank you.
Thanks.
After Tom, we have Matthew Bork, followed by Monica Cady.
Good morning. My name is Tom Chastain. I'm the post commander of Mackinac City's American Legion Post. I want to talk a little bit about the Enbridge Corporation. When Post was created in 1944, a lot of veterans coming home from the war, it was created for a veterans place to get together for their families. Over the years, the Post has got deteriorated, and when the pandemic hit and the government got shut down, we weren't sure the Post could continue with any more rebuilding of the Post. But thanks to Enbridge Corporation, they came along, they helped us get a new handicap sidewalks, a new seating, a new flagpole, and the move forward helped us get our building back together. Most of all, our furnace was about to go out the door, and they helped us with funds for that also. So as far as a steward, as far as Mackinac City is concerned in our post, Enbridge is most welcome, and move forward anything that they can do, they're more than welcome to come to our post too. But through their generosity, we got the post going again. Our membership is growing, and I just wanted to say that. So, thank you.
Thanks. Maybe we can schedule a public meeting there sometime.
Greetings, good afternoon. My name is Matthew.
Morning still.
Morning still. Depends on what state we're in. My name is Matthew Bork. I am one of the appellants in the appeal. So to first start with some extra information on following up what Devin said, there are 8 appellants total, individually in different groups. The expected, based on MyCan filing their brief and where it's been accepted to file on, the reply briefs are expected August 29th is the current schedule that we're looking at. Enbridge did just recently file an objection to MyCan's extension request, so that's a little in the pending process. I want to talk a little bit about I see that we're still missing a seat. I'm sorry I wasn't able to apply for the position. Governor Whitmer hasn't chosen a seat. I believe we're supposed to have 3 people up there, not 2. It's a little hard with just having a smaller panel rather than a larger panel. But I'm afraid it's a conflict of interest for me as an appellant to also sit on the panel. I'm pro se, I'm not an attorney. I'm just a citizen that's just doing my part with a lot of background information on this company that we call Enbridge that a lot of people seem to be very proud of, based on their presentation of what people call PR packages, public relations, which is an overall topic that I think we need to discuss on what we're getting as far as information from Enbridge. And it's something that I think that you as well would be happy to be aware of, and where your authority stands and what you might be able to gather in information. The information that's provided through the studies thus far is what is best referred to as PR material, public relations. They're to specifically to get a job done, and nothing other than that. The citizens would love to see information on all of these different tests that Enbridge is doing, the boring samples, the real data. Like, they are doing these drillings and they're affecting our areas, and we believe that we deserve to see that information. We would like you to ask them for that real data rather than just PR material.
You're talking about data with respect to the test borings that were performed
Everything.
some years ago?
Yes, through the boring, each one of these different tests, where Enbridge is out there all the time doing tests, we're never really seeing that actual data set. We're seeing what is collected to approve getting the job done. I would like to talk briefly about the gentleman we just aligned him with a contract as oversight, as far as I believe that comes out of our state tax dollar budget. And I would like to point out that he has 0 experience, from what he said, in tunnel building. What he is involved in is things involved in PHMSA. PHMSA is only involved after a pipeline is built. It has nothing to do, they're not involved with construction of a pipeline whatsoever. That has to do with Army Corps of Engineers or Federal Energy Regulations Commission, their oversight after a pipeline is completed. So to bring in an individual that's supposed to be involved in oversight, that we're paying to be oversight, that has no experience with tunnel building. There's no tunnels in Oklahoma. There's no tunnels in Kansas. This is the Great Lakes. We deserve an oversight, minimally, that has some experience with our areas. So that is definitely a very real concern. I would, just to go back to the other thing and really reinforce the idea of collecting real data, and this comes into some of the FOIA information as well. The citizens deserve real data. We're paying for all of this. We're paying for this room. This doesn't come out of Enbridge's pocket. I understand that Enbridge goes and spends money and gives $10,000 over here, $10,000 over there, $10,000 over there, but we have to pay Enbridge for all of these different things. So really, we're still paying for this. All they are doing by continuing to promote and go and pay off local community members is just, again, PR material. It's not actually to help them. As a matter of fact, the decision was if Line 5 was to shut down, that Enbridge is making the choice to pull propane supplies from northern Michigan. The pipeline would still exist. There's plenty of other places that are happy, and local businesses that would happily support up the Upper Peninsula of Michigan with their gas supplies. Enbridge would still have the ability to do it. They're using it as a threat and promoting it as a threat that anybody that wants to shut down Line 5 wants to freeze out northern Michigan residents, which is honestly pretty ridiculous. As far as the long term of this tunnel, Enbridge does have a history that has been proven. It's not propaganda that their pipeline workers are involved in human trafficking. It was proven during their construction of Line 3. They arrested, there was special sting operations that were done by law enforcement. 1/3 of the people that were found in those stinger operations were Enbridge employees, including trying to go after a 15-year-old child. Now, what we're setting up is a tunnel that Enbridge is in complete control of. And so in supporting this, it's also supporting an open trafficking door that's underground from one spot of Michigan to the other spot of Michigan with absolutely no oversight other than Enbridge. And based on Enbridge's history of bringing in workers from other states, and I understand that they try to say that they bring in and support local workers, but yet we have an oversight guy from Oklahoma, which also has a huge human trafficking problem. This is an epidemic that has, the more we've been looking into the studies of it, is a real thing. Fossil fuel industry comes equipped with human trafficking. Based on what we're looking at presently, we're not looking at stopping that. We're actually supporting a tunnel to actually support more human trafficking, which is, of course, a very serious concern of more than just me, several others. Any update on I guess I'm curious about the possible update on the third chair.
I don't know anything with respect to whether there have even been applicants for that position.
So the application process is still open?
I assume it's open until such time as the position is filled. But that's a question really more for the governor's appointment office.
Thank you for your clarification.
Sure.
And yeah, just to go back to really instituting an oversight that has no experience with tunnel building, I guess I'm very confused by why we would be paying an engineering firm as oversight to a very complicated project that has absolutely no experience in that. And I understand that you've already approved that, which again is a concern when that information comes forward and there hasn't been the time to research because, as we've been talking, it's about where does the Mackinac Straits Corridor Authority stand? Where is your authority? What do you have the ability to do? What I'd ask for you is to ask you to help us get the real information, the real data. If these guys are drilling in the Straits of Mackinac, they're looking at our sediment things, they're looking at our water test things, or through that drilling process, they've gone through artesian wells, they do all sorts of things, but we don't get to see that data. So if these guys are drilling for our benefit to get these studies, we would like to see that real data. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Last is Monica Katie.
Good morning, Ani. My name's Monica Katie. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in Environmental Studies and Sustainable Community Development with an Indigenous perspective from Prescott College. I'm very concerned about the untested proposed tunnel project. I'm concerned that it will flint the Great Lakes and industrialize this area, pollute the water and fish. Also, the workers will be from out of town, bringing man camps that will bring sex trafficking, hard drugs like meth and fentanyl. And we all know that contributes to the missing and murdered Indigenous people. I saw it happen In North Dakota, when they brought fracking at Fort Berthold, it brings sex trafficking. I'm a mother and grandmother, and I'm concerned about clean water for the next 7 generations. Enbridge is holding the Great Lakes hostage. They're trespassing. I don't agree with Snyder's tunnel plan, especially after what he did to Flint, poisoning everybody. My aunt and uncle were poisoned. They can't sell their house. We should not be doing anything that Enbridge or that's supported by Snyder. Enbridge was evicted over 3 years ago. They were evicted in May. They're trespassing, and this is a very pristine area with a lot of plant medicines. I'm a subsistence wild edible forager. I am a descendant of Ojibwe relative from Mackinac Island that lived to be 113, and she did from eating and drinking teas from plant medicines in this area. If the tunnel goes through, it's going to pollute. And basically, I consider this environmental genocide and cultural genocide, environmental racism. Our Ojibwe lifeways will be destroyed, and all Michigan tribes want Enbridge to leave. Bay Mills tribal chairwoman Whitney Gravel has banished Enbridge, and we're tired of the PR. We're tired of the lies and the propaganda. We're tired of Enbridge infiltrating with their little $10,000 trinkets when they make $3 million a day as a shortcut through our waters. The tunnel will destroy the local wells in St. Ignace. People will have to switch to city water and pay a high bill. The boring causes earthquakes. The bitumen from the tunnel will pollute the fish and water. The tunnel is not a solution. We want Line 5 decommissioned now. I had a very vivid dream of a giant turtle with a big metal hook through its belly, and it was a very disturbing dream. And what this dream means, I took dream interpretation in college, is that our Great Lakes are in danger. And the turtle we're Mother Earth, Aki, this is Turtle Island. The Mackinac Straits are considered the heart of Turtle Island. Mackinac Island is Turtle Island. We want this tunnel decommissioned and out of here. It will ruin the economy, and Michigan will become a ghost town. All the economy is from the pristine Great Lakes. No one wants to come here when there's a oil spill. I strongly oppose the untested tunnel, and Enbridge, they lie nonstop, and we don't want the 99-year lease. So that's my comment. And they do need to be more transparent. What are they doing? I've been seeing them out in a barge. What are they doing right now? They need to leave, though. And basically, I believe that they have invaded our area. And, President Biden with the pen stroke could make them leave, and he should. Or, the National Guard should make Enbridge leave, because they're trespassing. And they're trespassing in our treaty territories. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have any other individuals from the public who wanted to address the authority? Okay. Is that Mark?
All the way through everyone?
We have.
May I add one more minute?
Sure, you can have another minute.
Thank you so much. Part of this is in regards that I believe one of the last time we talked, at the last meeting, we were communicating about the possibility for people that aren't able to be here and then being able to take part in the public comment, whether it be through the Microsoft, whatever, so that because obviously this affects more than just the Straits area. So I guess I was looking for an update on whether that had been made a possibility or whether we can do that next time.
Yeah, I think the primary method of enabling other people to do it is simply to make sure that their written comments are appended as part of the minutes, which we've requested be done for the 5 people who submitted written comments.
Written comments,
Yeah.
okay, but we're not going to move towards
having them kind of like Facebook or not,
what's the? I think
like
they use the
a
Microsoft
Zoom or other
Yeah.
type of presentation. No, we don't. No, I don't think that is anticipated.
That's not anticipated. Okay, thank you. Whereas I appreciate, you did work on the Flint water crisis cases. I'm to understand that, but when we look at the overall damage of these different things, the reality, how that worked out for Flint residents is, I believe, $2,000 per household. And so when we look at this balance of approving certain things and how we balance that out with the citizens, the Flint residents were blasted with Legionnaire's disease, I mean, a living bacteria for a year and a half, bathing in it and everything. And the overall way to balance that was a settlement that equaled $2,000 per household. Now, we're in somewhat of a similar situation here with Enbridge, in the worst case scenario being that it destroys the whole Great Lakes region. So what's that worth? Like, maybe $1 billion to them, if not less. I'm not sure if there's a number that we can equate, because the Great Lakes region is priceless. I do have some serious concerns how any state agency or federal agency could be doing business with Enbridge right now, be it that they are criminally trespassing right over in Wisconsin through tribal lands. That is now, it's only been proven, stamped on civil court, but it's obvious that if someone's been trespassing for 10 years, for some reason Enbridge is not criminally liable, but yet the citizens are, and there's only some kind of civil thing. And so we seem to have this problem with the system of companies that are able to operate criminally, but not enforced criminally. And so in working with a company, I would have to question how we can allow any business to operate when there is no actual method to enforce them to act like the rest of us citizens are expected to act. We have to stay within criminal guidelines. Enbridge is not the case. Apparently, they've been trespassing for 10 years criminally in Wisconsin. How we can continue to move forward with such a large business that's a foreign corporation is definitely a question. Thank you so much.
Thanks. All right. We had another individual who wants to address the board.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is William Peralta. I'm just a taxpayer. Pays for my property out by the Deer Ranch on US 2. I'm a neighbor to Enbridge. I got woke up pretty early in the morning one time when somebody wanted to blow their equipment up. So it does seem there's a little bit of a rejection to Enbridge. Me, myself, I would like to address you by asking questions because I've called every scenario so far at various hearings where people submitted testimony about aquatic species, digestive juices corroding the pipeline, where I was the one that revealed the anchor strikes. I was the one that caught the barge that was merely trying to navigate against headwinds and currents by doing what barges usually do, like in the rivers, like the Mississippi, which is drag their anchor to maintain a straight navigation. Another thing that I did back in October 2016 was I made a video depiction of smoke billowing out of Lake Huron, or Lake Michigan, sorry, just west of the bridge where the pipelines lie, and a lot of people didn't get it. And then the engineers did get it. I want to know what, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, what they have done to mitigate the saturation of methane gases produced by decay. I also want to know if this tunnel is actually going to be in its entirety under bedrock, because the magnitude of the explosion, if there's some kind of electrical short, a spark, anchor strike that pierces the tunnel, most likely in the shipping lane, which is a ancient riverbed, approximately a quarter-mile wide and 40 plus or minus fathoms deep, 240 feet deep. You also have a couple hundred feet of sediment. How is the tunnel going to go under all of that? Do you have any idea of that? I'd never get the answer to this question as a taxpayer.
Just to respond to that question, we had a pretty detailed presentation to the authority, I want to say roughly 2 years ago. I'd have to go back and find which meeting it was at, that described in much greater detail. We don't do it at every meeting,
Right.
but described in much greater detail the actual configuration of the pipeline, at what different geological conditions it was going through at different depths on both sides as it went underground. And I can't describe that in detail for you, but I know that when we watched that presentation roughly 2.5 years ago, and I think that's probably still on video on the authority's website, it describes in much greater detail the geologic conditions at each step for the depth of the tunnel.
Okay. I went to the greet and meet at Little Bear East that Enbridge put on to show tunnel design, and I think the manager at the time her name was Laura or Lori. And at the time, the design of the pipe only went through bedrock to start, but maintained within the sediment to go across, which I'm hoping you guys are looking at. Because as engineers, college degree, right up there, that finally caught up to me, which I don't have a college degree for this, but just thinking from common sense, caught up to that methane saturation into a cement tunnel. And that's a big concern I hope you guys are looking at. I mean, because if that thing goes, there is nobody connected to this that is going to feel good about anything after that, because it's going to destroy Bell's Fishery, it's going to destroy tribal treaty rights to fish, it's going to destroy freighter traffic, because we all know what happened up in Alaska. A lot of people had to have their boats replaced by that oil company. The ferries to Mackinac Island, tourist industry, nobody's going to want to smell bitumen. I mean, it's going to be catastrophic. So I'm really praying that you guys are really taking a good grasp on that. And I sat in the back quietly just to take in what was going on. And the perspective of the state tax dollar paying for engineers that I know nothing about really, but according to this guy's testimony, has no real oversight experience, or the company doesn't, for a properly constructed tunnel, has got me concerned too. So I'm hoping you
Yeah.
guys are taking that in regard.
Well, I'll respond after you're done. Are you
I'm
finished?
done.
Okay. The one thing I did, because folks have identified that with respect to Mr. Brownlee, his expertise is more focused in pipeline. We have an IQA contractor who we have also retained that has much greater expertise in the tunnel construction, and will be overseeing as our primary ears and eyes, should the tunnel be constructed, all of the aspects of tunnel construction. So I look to Mr. Brownlee more for expertise with respect to pipeline standards and safety standards for pipeline, but the IQA contractor for the more substantive questions about tunnel construction and tunnel safety.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thanks. All right. Any other members of the public that wanted to make a statement? The only other thing, based on some of the public comments that we did receive, and as it relates to the access to materials, borings, that kind of stuff, there is a tremendous amount of information that has been submitted, not only to our staff, but also in submissions before the Michigan Public Service Commission, in an ongoing situation with the Army Corps of Engineer and with Eagle, which I still refer to as DEQ. But I think it is a fair point that we could probably pull more of those materials and have them available on our website, simply to have people take a look at it. So I will look into that, and hopefully we can make some improvements on the availability of some of those materials between now and the next meeting on October 18th. Anything else? All right. With that, we are adjourned.